Good afternoon, everyone. This is 22nd of July, and we are after a very intense 2 weeks. If we only count the assassination attempt against the former president and the quitting of the current president, which is, by the way, really weird because first, people fighting over whether he's fit for a presidency or not, and of course, they're supporting that he is indeed fit. And now that the current president is kind of say that I'm okay, I'm not fit, so I'm going to quit the race, but I'm going to stay as president until my term is ending. So first question is that if he's not fit for president, and that's why he gives the space, of course, under a tremendous pressure, he gives the space to somebody else to run as a president. How can he stay as a president until the end of his term? Because as we all know and we all see, and no matter how much we try to debate this question, his policies, his economy is a disaster. And that's just creating an environment which result in a worse America. And if you think about that, if he stays for the next 6 months, which is going to be probably the most intense 6 months in the last 10 or 20 years, that could create even further problems in geopolitics, in economics, in almost every single field. And so this is weird for me. The second weird point with the current president is his supporters. So now that he did not admit, but kind of admit that he's not fit for presidency, that's why he's not running. Technically, they forget about they did fight and how much they did fight over this question. And I'm the only one just living in a pink cloud that I believe that one day people learn to communicate. So when you defeated, you're supposed to accept and admit that you have been defeated. And it's weird for me, this kind of communication, that now very quickly we forgot about the fight what we made over whether Biden is fit or not, and now we are just jumping to the next topic, and we keep blaming the other side instead of having some brain work and thinking about what is really beneficial for America. And we're not just talking about America, we're also talking about the globe itself. Every single economy is strongly dependent on the US economy. So let's see what the market is reacting and how the market is supposed to react for the upcoming days and weeks, because this week from the macroeconomic perspective is not too hard. But the week after is going to be a macroeconomic bloodbath. So let's just take a quick look what is going on and how the market is reacting. First of all, since the assassination of Donald Trump, or the attempt, the market is trying to price in something which is really in favor of the former president, because everybody is expecting him to win this race. And let's be honest, whether we like it or not, there is a great chance that he is going to win. And so there is a thing that just came out in the last week which called the Trump trade, and that means that actually the stock market is trying to divert the money, trying to ride some waves, or creating waves to ride. And that wave looks like at the moment that money from the stocks is coming out. Not all the stocks, of course, but for example, the tech sector suffered a huge loss in the last 1 week, and the Bitcoin is generally up. So from one risky sector, the money went over to another risky sector, but at the same time we got different money flows as well. And this is very interesting to see how the market is actually reacting for those scenarios. But that's what we saw in the last 2 weeks, and it was really interesting to see. However, we got another thing, which is Joe Biden is out of the race. So technically, the Democratic Party is in full chaos. Now, we can try to picture this in a nicer way, but if you think about it, we are just a couple of months before the election itself, and the Democratic Party currently does not have a nominee. So months before the election, this is a complete disaster of the Democratic Party, which I think it was a very long time that it happened before. This describes that how much the Democratic Party is not prepared, is not having a plan how to do the work. And that's what we experienced in the last 4 years, that technically what they do is a complete mess. They don't really understand what to do with the economy. They don't really understand how to drive it, or if there is any problem, how to fix it. But strangely, we had the Democratic president. It's, for example, Barack Obama. He was the one, actually, I believe, still at the front of the Democratic Party. But at the same time, when he was a president, at least he organized something, and he got an organized party with an organized work, with organized offices. Now it's completely independent whether we agree with his policies or we like him or not. It doesn't really matter. One thing there was, and this is undeniable, and that's the organization. What we're experiencing now with the Democratic Party, which is sad, by the way, because a party is supposed to be a kind of strong, especially a size of party than the Democratic Party. So what we're experiencing is complete clueless. That's what we saw in the last 3.5 years. So the Democratic Party is technically losing supporters, losing donations as well. And it's really hard to donate to the Democratic Party right now, because for a serious person to say that I don't really care who is the nominee, I just supporting the Democratic Party and I'm going to make donations in large amount, I mean, we're talking about millions of dollars. This is foolish, and they know exactly. So they hold back the donation because they don't know who to support. And so therefore, because the disaster they created, they're also losing unions now on a very serious level. So the party is completely losing its ground, and they don't go into a right direction. So they need to start figuring out somehow how to fix this issue, because otherwise the party itself is going to suffer even further, because they're not only going to lose the election, they're going to lose the House, they're going to lose the Senate, they're going to lose the Supreme Court, they're going to lose everything, what they can. And to fixing this, they're going to need about another 20 years to build up a completely new Democratic Party, which I believe is going to happen either way. But the question is how much they can keep up right now. And so what it's going to result in the upcoming weeks, actually, that the geopolitical mess they caused in the last 3.5 years is going to accelerating even further. So we're going to see that Russia is not going to stop at all. In fact, there will be more interesting moves from Russia, especially that we are moving very close to the general election and there is no nominee from the Democratic Party yet. Now, here is a Kamala Harris effect, which is a very weird situation, because whoever donated to the Democratic Party so far to Joe Biden, it went to an account to support this party, this administration, but Joe Biden is out now. So the only way to get these donations is that Kamala Harris is going to run for office. But here is the twist, because the Democratic Party does not want Kamala Harris running the office. So the Democratic Party needs to fix several very serious issues, but the first issue they need to fix is find somebody that can give a hope for the Democratic voters, but at the same time, it doesn't have a very bad a view in terms of speaking, in terms of debating, in terms of having some self-respect and respect from the voters, because even Democratic voters think that Kamala Harris is, I mean, okay, she's a cute girl, but at the same time, she doesn't have a clue how to drive a country. She cannot debate with a leader of another country. Let's imagine that the United States is your company, which is supposed to give job to others, which is supposed to, keep up a healthy work environment, which is supposed to generate profit and money. Now, if you are the owner of the business, you're going to need a CEO. The larger the business grows, the more help you need to drive the business. So you're going to need a CEO. The CEO who is going to have conversations, meetings with other company leaders, such as other countries, and those leaders are hard. I mean, you just thinking about Xi Jinping. We can say any bad thing about communists. We can say any bad thing about China. But to drive a country like China requires a strong and clever man. And I don't want to talk about what is his intention, what he wants to do with other nations or what he doesn't want to do with other nations. I don't want to talk about that. The only thing I want to talk about is whether he is clever enough to cheat, to drive, to be honest sometimes. This is something we need to give a credit for him. Exactly the same goes to, for example, Vladimir Putin. I mean, the whole world is shocked because he is unable to attack Ukraine, to accelerate the situation, which killing people. And of course, this is a very bad thing. But in order to do that, you must be a clever person. You might be not all right in the head, but you may have intentions which is really bad. But at the same time, you need to be very clever. You need to be able to plan. You need to be able to having conversations with other leaders, to debate. And so imagine Kamala Harris as your CEO sitting down with these people and try to convince them about something, and they are laughing their ass out of their pants. So the Democratic Party knows this exactly, but the money is there, and Kamala Harris is the only one who can access these monies because she is partly the one who got as a support. So I think the Democratic Party needs to make a really, really sudden 180 degrees turnaround. And they need to find somebody. Now, here is Gavin Newsom, which his name sounds good. His looking is okay. He can talk, but the problem is that he completely destroyed California. And it's not like it is something the Republicans say. It is something even Democrats say. And we know exactly what's going on in California. People are actually either dying or go bankrupt or go homeless or leave the state whatsoever. And so that's the situation with Gavin Newsom. They're not going to elect, or they're only going to elect Gavin Newsom if they're really desperate, if they're really running out options. So he is at some point better than Kamala Harris, and that's why I'm saying as a last option, they will use it. But there is another option, and this option is Michelle Obama, because they don't want a white person right now as a nominee. The reason why they don't want it, because their communication in the last 3.5 years was they need to clear out this racist rhetoric, despite they've been the really one pushing this narrative and trying to plant the racist as a word in the head of the American people. But at the same time, this is it's a reversed psychology. So they used to blame somebody in order to do a completely different thing, but get credit for the same thing. So that's what they do. That's just the Democratic Party. So they forced to elect somebody who's not white to make sure that keep it up this respect of diversity. And I think Michelle Obama is a very, very good choice for them. And by the way, she is intelligent enough to be the president. And I have no doubt I would not support. But at the same time, I need to admit that she is clever and intelligent enough to take the office. Now, here is the other thing. Remember when Obama served 2 terms, he exposed his intentions to sit in the back, but having somebody driving the country as he does, but at the same time, Obama wants some kind of power above this person. Now, this is not a secret, even not for Democrats. So I'm not saying something that you need to oppose or not. That was his intention. And actually, he did that with Joe Biden. So people elected the Democratic Party with Joe Biden. And Barack Obama managed to stay in the background, but drive the country at some point on the way he wants to see it, which this is the part what I don't agree, because I don't like what I see. But on the other hand, if the Democratic Party comes up with Michelle Obama as a nominee, of the Democratic Party for the 2024 election, Barack Obama gets a 4th term in office. And that, I think, as one of the most powerful person in the Democratic Party, because the other one is the old lady, which we don't really like. But then Barack Obama can get the 4th terms. So I think right now, we don't hear about this, so I cannot prove what I'm saying. It's just my way of thinking that the most realistic option for the Democratic Party would be Michelle Obama, because then the Democratic Party could start to win back some votes and maybe use the cheating process, what they want to use with the Dominion machines and with the voting system. So they might able to beat Donald Trump in November if they're cheating enough and if they nominate Michelle Obama. That's what I think about it. And that's what the market is trying to price in with the effect of the Trump trade. Because even though the market expects something big coming from the Democratic Party in the upcoming days or weeks, because they need to act very fast, because they run out of time, it's almost August now, and the election is November, and they do not have a nominee. This is the biggest disaster ever happened with the Democratic Party. The party is literally falling apart. And so I never seen anything like that. And it's going to go down in history, big time. But that's why traders and investors are playing this card right now and trying to rotate the money on the market, on the Trump trade. Because they know they can use this card only until the election, but after the election, it's going to be a different story. Depends on who is going to win the election. But right now, Donald Trump is the only nominee for the President of the United States. Nobody else. There is no more nominee for president. None. Okay, yeah, I mean, there are other parties as well, but, between the two parties. So let's just understand a little bit how this money rotation goes, because this is a real thing. This is how the market is working. So the money is always rotating from one place to another. I mean, the big money, the biggest part of the money. And sometimes it's going to risky trades, sometimes it's going to less risky trades, sometimes it's going to essentials, sometimes it's going to focusing on one market sector, what we experienced with the AI sector. This is a very real thing, and the market will indeed rotate the money. And so let's just see what happened in the last, at least the last 1 month in terms of rotation. So we got the tech sector boomed in the last 1 year, 2 years, AI mania, ridiculous prices on the market. I mean, they priced in literally everything, even the next 30 years as well, and added on the top of everything. And so we experienced after the assassination attempt that the money is actually flowing out from the tech sector, is going into the small caps. And that was a very, very understandable process what we experienced. But just right before Joe Biden announced that he is out of the race, what we see that from all of the small caps, the money is trying to get into the risk of assets. It's like bonds and it's like, essentials. And that was one move very, very suddenly. So the market does not trust anymore enough in the tech sector to get the money, to rotate the money back from the small caps to the tech sector, but rather they are uncertain. And every time the market is uncertain, they are rotating the money into safe haven assets. But what is safe haven currently is really depends on the current environment, because oil wasn't the good safe haven. But maybe it will be next week. It depends on how the geopolitics are developing in the next 1 week. I mean, we saw some profit taking on the gold market, but at the same time, the correction on the gold market, it was very small. So it's still very reliable for the market. So one thing for sure, in the upcoming days, the market will finish this rotation process, and probably most of the money gonna go to these relatively risk-off assets. But this is the big question, where the money will go from the risk-off assets, because things are going to happen this week as well. But next week, guys, is going to be, as I said, a macroeconomic bloodbath. I'm going to show you why. So in order to figure out what could be this next step of the market, we need to understand that this happened all the time in the life of the market. So here we go. As you can see, the Dow Jones, the blue line, and the Nasdaq with the orange line. And we went back to the dot-com bubble in 2000 and a little bit before. What happened? So from 1998 October, which was the end of the bottom at that time, both of the index went up pretty good. That was the one when they started the bubble. And when we arrived very close to the bubble, we started to experiencing some anomalies in the economy. It wasn't really big. It was nothing like in 2007 or in 2020 or even back in 2081 or 80 or even the 90s. It was special. It was not big anomaly, but it was some anomaly. And the US 30, the Dow Jones, is actually experienced this anomaly, and therefore the Dow Jones stopped accelerating to the upside. In fact, it started to come down a little bit harshly. In the meantime, of course, Nasdaq had some correction as well, but then it continued to go up. And then in 1999, October, when the bubble really experienced the last phase, I mean, the most energetic movement to the upside with the tech sector, by the way, it was very similar to what we are experiencing right now. The Nasdaq and the US 30 went all the way up, and at some point, when the market realized that, hey, there's a terrible big problem here, and this is a bubble, this is going to top. So what they did is, at this point in January 2000, they started to divert the last portion of the money into the tech sector. Yes, into the high risk, because they knew that this is the time to really pump up the last one as much as we can. So all the money started to focusing on the tech sector. As you can see, the Nasdaq boomed to the upside. Meanwhile, the US 30 is completely crashed. But at one point, they rotated back the money to the US 30, some portion of the money. Meanwhile, the bubble burst. Nobody believed the bubble burst. We got that correction. This is not a correction. This is a complete crash on the Nasdaq. And everybody believed that, oh, this is not a bubble. This cannot stop. The tech sector is going to change the world. And yes, it did. But the market is working on a different way, because the market is driven by money and by the FOMO of the people and the hungriness of the money. And that's a different world. So yes, the tech sector in 2000 changed the world, and we're still experiencing the effect of it. But at the same time, the market was not ready to go any higher. And that was the rule of life, the rule of market. So meanwhile, the Nasdaq crashed. All the money went out from the Nasdaq. Big time. It lost everything from the bubble. Everything. And it wasn't the end, by the way, because it went down even further after that. But we can see that from time to time, the money went into the US 30. It didn't make a new high. Then it went out of it. Then it went in of it. And you know what this play game was? The money sometimes directed into the US 30 because that represented the relatively safe part of the stock market. But when it came out of it, it went into safe havens like gold, like oil, like anything that it was at the time the safe haven. Even the safe haven at this time, when the money went out of the Dow Jones, it was a different safe haven what I experienced here at that time. And the time to time, the money in, the money out, the money in, the money out, and the US 30 is crashed as well at the end. So you understand that it depends on the circumstance. The market is always rotating the money. There's no way for you to figure it out where the money will go unless you're monitoring the market, understand what is going on, because otherwise you'd know nothing about where the money wants to go. You have no idea. And that's why we following the market week by week and trying to figure this out. So what money rotations can we have? Now, first of the money rotation can have is the earnings season, which is coming now. So we need to pay attention for this earnings season, because if the AI sector starts reporting bad things, you know exactly what's coming, because the stage is set, the market is ready. So the money will rotate from one place to another because of the earnings season. And it's not hard to figure out which money will go. Of course, the AI money will come out from the AI sector and going into maybe a different section of the stock market, like the bank sector. Because, for example, if the macroeconomics, the third rotation hits in, and maybe Jeremy Powell decides to cut interest rates before the election, which I talked about in my weekend video, If that happens, the bank sector will love. Bank stocks will go up because it's good for them. But the money will come from somewhere. And this somewhere is the AI sector if the earnings season is not very good in results. Here is the rotation of the geopolitics. Now, this can freak the hell from everybody. Because if something is going bad, all the tension is accelerating all around the globe. Day by day, situation gets worse and worse. Whether you read the news, whether you listen, or whatever you do, this is what it is. And just one wrong step, and if there is a panic because of geopolitics, it's going to affect everything. And at this stage, for example, it doesn't matter how bad the earnings was to get the money out of the AI sector. And for example, we're going to get a rate cut and the money going to pour into bonds and the bank sector stocks. But then if the geopolitics hit in, they're going to lose as well. You understand why you can't say that, oh, this is going to go up for 3 months. You have no idea it's going to go up. But these are the major powers that's going to rotate the money. And of course, the fourth rotation is the US election. There is one card they're trying to play out right now, which I mentioned to you. This is the Trump trade. And the second card will be if the Democratic Party is coming up with a nominee like Michelle Obama. If they do, and that's the most important thing, Trump trade is going to reverse and it's going to be Obama trade. And then once we are moving into the 2024 election in November, it's going to change again. So the money will come from one sector to another and go to the other sector. So we need to understand this rotation. Now you see what are the powers driving the rotation. We just need to follow the market, identify when one of the rotation is in effect. And that's exactly what we're going to do. Because we're not going to start predicting that, oh my God, Bitcoin will be 100 million at the end of the year. Maybe, because why not? I don't really care. Because it will be, I'm going to ride the wave. But if it's not, then what? I was just hodling and DCA and hodling. It just doesn't make sense. I'm getting in when it's going up. I'm going to get out when it's going down because I understand the reason why it's going down. I don't know how long it's going to go down, but I can identify whether it's going to be longer than expected or not. And that's what we do. And that's why we are having a decision on the market to buy something. And then right after that, we're having a different decision. We need to breathe together with the market. So now we understand that what is going on exactly. Let's see really what we need to be afraid of.